Certain prerequisites are required before we start the blood supply. Following is the sternum with its manubrium and the body. At its junction is termed as the angle of Lewis, from where the second rib is inserted. This is the first rib. This is the scapula with its coracoid process, acromion process, and the glenoid cavity. From the heart, the aorta arises and arches at the sternal angle or the angle of Lewis. This is termed as the aortic arch. The aortic arch has three branches. First branch on the right side is the brachiocephalic branch. In its middle, we have the left common carotid, and lastly the left subclavian. The arch descends down as descending thoracic aorta. The left subclavian continues as such towards the upper limb. The left common carotid rises above towards and runs towards the neck. The brachiocephalic runs forward for a while and then terminate with two branches as the right subclavian and the right common carotid. This is the left subclavian, and this area is the right subclavian. So we have brachiocephalic, left common carotid, and left subclavian. The subclavian vein arteries on both the sides will continue forward to form the axillary artery. Proper demarcation physically can be made as starting from the outer border of the first rib till the insertion of the teres major muscle. The whole extent is the axillary artery. So the axillary artery is basically the continuation of the subclavian arteries on the both sides. We are looking at only from the right side. The axillary artery can be divided into three parts by the pectoralis minor muscle. The pectoralis minor muscle originates from the third, fourth, and fifth rib and its intercostal spaces and gets inserted over the medial margin of the coracoid process of scapula. Henceforth, the axillary artery can be divided as a part proximal to, as a part distal to, and a part below the pectoralis minor muscle. So, the part proximal to the pectoralis minor muscle forms the first part of axillary artery, the part below the second, and the part distal the third part. The first part only has one branch, the second part gives two branches, and the third part gives three branches respectively. The first part of the axillary artery gives a small artery termed as the superior thoracic artery. It supplies majorly the superficial parts, breast, and related areas of the pectoral region. The second part of the axillary artery, which is below the pectoralis minor muscle, gives two arteries. Exactly on its medial end, the artery arising is the thoracoacromion artery. It starts from the medial border of the pectoralis minor muscle and immediately terminates into four branches. These four can be remembered by the mnemonic A, B, C, and D, as these branches supply the acromion process, the breast, the clavicle bone, and the deltoid muscle. The third branch of the axillary artery comes from the second part of the axillary artery and traces the lateral border of the pectoralis minor muscle. This is the lateral thoracic artery. So axillary artery gave the superior thoracic, the acromion thoracic or the thoracoacromion artery, and the lateral thoracic artery. It will trace the lateral wall or the lateral side of the pectoralis minor muscle and supplies major muscles like pectoralis minor, pectoralis major, serratus anterior, etc. The third part of the axillary artery is important, giving 3 branches. The first branch runs parallel with the lateral border of the scapula, is the largest branch of the axillary artery, is the subscapular artery. The subscapular artery provides further a branch termed as circumflex scapular artery, which will anastomose with the scapula. This one lies posterior. 2 branches further are provided by the axillary artery. Anteriorly, it gives the anterior circumflex humeral, and posteriorly winding, it gives the posterior circumflex humeral surrounding the humerus at its surgical neck. The axillary artery will continue after the insertion of teres major, will continue as the brachial artery. So we have seen the axillary artery, which was the continuation of the subclavian artery. It was divided into 3 parts by the pectoralis minor muscle. The artery continues down into the upper limb as the brachial artery. The axillary artery will terminate at somewhat this level at the insertion of the teres major muscle, right after providing its anterior circumflex and posterior circumflex humeral arteries. So from here on, it continues into the upper limb as the brachial artery. The brachial artery runs along the arm and at the elbow in the cubital fossa, at the level of the neck of the radius bone. It divides into 2 parts, the lateral radius or the lateral radial artery and the medial ulnar artery. So the brachial artery is a continuation of the axillary artery and terminates as radial and ulnar artery. Brachial artery is the main artery of the arm and it provides multiple branches. First major branch is at the upper level, where it provides a spiraling artery termed as the profunda brachii. Brachial artery. So the profunda brachii artery will arise from the upper part of the brachial artery and will wind around the humerus posteriorly and comes at its posterior part in its lateral aspect. Apart from this, the brachial artery also provides the superior and the inferior ulnar collateral arteries. The superior ulnar collateral artery, however, will pierce the medial intermuscular segment or septa and run posteriorly. As for profunda brachii artery, they will terminate as its posterior and anterior part as the anterior recurrent artery and the posterior recurrent artery. Apart from these, the brachial artery will also provide multiple muscular branch supplying the muscles of the arm. Consider this to be the posterior view of the humerus, with the medial side and this the lateral side, the greater tubercle, the head, the neck and the posterior part. The posterior shaft bears an oblique groove called radial groove or the spiral groove. It lodges the radial nerve and the profunda brachii artery. Therefore, anteriorly, the continuation of the brachial artery will provide a branch, the profunda brachii, which runs posteriorly in the spiral groove, remains posterior and divides into two branches, posterior recurrent and piercing the lateral intermuscular septum, the anterior recurrent. These two help in anastomosing at the elbow. So we know that the brachial artery runs down and terminates at the level of the neck or the radial tuberosity by terminating into two branches, laterally into the radial branch and medially into the ulnar branch. So we have the radial artery and the ulnar artery. The ulnar artery runs continuously downwards so as the radial artery, terminating to form the superficial and deep palmar arches. Apart from this, between the two bones, radius and ulna, there is the intermuscular or the interosseous membrane. The interosseous membrane has two terminals, that is the open and proximal and the open distal. From the ulnar artery, a branch named as common interosseous artery arises, which divides immediately into posterior interosseous artery and the anterior interosseous artery. The anterior interosseous artery will run in the anterior part, which is in the deep part of the flexor compartment, and the posterior interosseous will run in the deep part of the extensor compartment. At the distal 1/4 of the interosseous membrane, the anterior interosseous artery will pierce and run in the extensor compartment, anastomosing with the posterior interosseous artery. Now, the ulnar artery will provide two further branches, that is the anterior ulnar recurrent and the posterior ulnar recurrent artery, for anastomosing at the elbow. The radial artery provides the radial recurrent artery, and the interosseous artery, that is posterior interosseous artery, just as it's arched backwards, it will give a branch, that is interosseous recurrent artery. So four arteries participate in the anastomosing at the elbow. Certain muscular relations are to be noted here, is that the radial artery at its distal end rests upon the pronator quadratus. It is due to this muscle that we are able to feel the pulsations of the radial artery. Apart from this, in the major aspect, the radial artery lies between the brachioradialis muscle and the flexor digitorum superficialis. So radial artery lies between brachioradialis and flexor digitorum superficialis. At its lower part, flexor pollicis longus plays a major part for the radial artery to rest upon. The ulnar artery, on the other hand, has relations in the proximal aspect with the pronator teres. And it's the middle end with the flexor carpi ulnaris muscle. Venous system of the same is very similar. The ulnar vein and the radial vein running parallel and forming the vena commitans of the brachial artery, that is the brachial vein. Talking about the veins of the arm, we have less importantly the radial vein and the ulnar vein. These join together to form the brachial vein. Brachial vein, however, are not true continuations and are vena commitans. Vena commitans are basically those small venules which surrounds the main artery and conducts the blood in opposite direction due to the pulsation of the artery in its middle. They'll continue as the axillary artery. However, main axillary artery is an actual continuation of the basilic vein. So the vena commitans will continue as the axillary vein, yet the axillary vein is a major continuation of the basilic vein. The cephalic vein runs in the lateral aspect of the arm and opens directly into the subclavian, or the junction of the axillary vein into the subclavian vein. In this case, the axillary vein is continued. Similar is the case for the profunda brachii vein. Continuing forward and merges with the vena commitans of the brachial vein. So we had the vena commitans of the brachial vein or the brachial artery, the vena commitans running upwards, and axillary vein being the continuation of the basilic vein. Laterally, another vein called the cephalic vein continues upwards and drains either at the junction of axillary artery, draining into the subclavian, or directly into the axillary vein. So now the newly formed axillary vein will continue upwards with the axillary artery and ends up forming the subclavian vein. The cephalic vein can drain directly into the subclavian vein or into the axillary vein. As such, now points to be noted are that all the branches of the artery, that is posterior circumflex, anterior circumflex humeral, you have the subclavian, we have lateral thoracic, and we have the superior thoracic. These 5 branches of the axillary artery have their corresponding veins. They will drain directly into the axillary vein as such. However, the acromiothoracic vein will drain directly into the cephalic vein. Another important point to be noted is the lateral thoracic vein gives further tributaries which communicates with the superficial epigastric vein. The superficial epigastric vein will eventually drain into the IVC, which conducts the blood upwards towards the heart. So in case of any thromboembolic disorder of the axillary vein, secondary route might be formed via this pathway, normalizing the cardiac output and assisting the person somewhat. We have four major arterial anastomosis in the upper limb. Firstly, we'll find one at the scapula. The scapular anastomosis comprises the subclavian artery and the axillary artery. We have from the third part of axillary artery, which is the largest branch, the subscapular artery running downwards, tracing the lateral border of the scapula. It provides a branch termed the circumflex scapular artery for anastomosing with the scapula. From the subclavian artery, there is a branch termed the thyrocervical trunk. The thyrocervical trunk provides the suprascapular artery. The suprascapular artery runs along the superior border of the scapula and enters the posterior part of scapula via the suprascapular notch. And helps in anastomosing with the circumflex scapular artery. Apart from this, the deep transverse cervical artery is another branch of the thyrocervical trunk, providing secondary anastomosis. Along with the body of the scapula, there is anastomosis at the acromion process as well. We know that the first branch of the second part of axillary artery is the thoracoacromion artery, which terminates into four branches. One of its branch supplies the acromion process. The acromion branch of suprascapular artery and also from the posterior circumflex humeral artery, an acromion branch arises. Second major anastomosing site is around the surgical neck of humerus, involving the posterior circumflex humeral artery and the anterior circumflex humeral artery. Third major site is anastomosing at the elbow. We know that the continuation of the brachial artery will soon terminate at the level of the radial tuberosity to the radial artery and the ulnar artery. The radial artery gives a branch that is radial recurrent artery. The ulnar artery gives two branches, that is anterior ulnar recurrent and the posterior ulnar recurrent. Ulnar artery also gives the common interosseous artery, which divides into anterior interosseous and posterior interosseous. From the posterior interosseous recurrent artery arises. We know that from the brachial artery, we have the superior and the inferior ulnar collateral artery. And from the terminal parts of the profunda brachii artery, we have its anterior and posterior recurrent arteries. So around the elbow, at the site of the medial epicondyle, we have two anastomoses anterior to the medial epicondyle. We have the inferior ulnar collateral anastomosing with the anterior ulnar recurrent. Posterior to the medial epicondyle, we have the superior ulnar collateral anastomosing with the posterior ulnar recurrent artery. At the lateral epicondyle, anterior to it, we have the anterior collateral artery anastomosing with the radial recurrent artery, and posteriorly, the posterior collateral anastomosing with the interosseous recurrent artery.